Hello and welcome to MVP Days. My name's Kent Weare. I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Flow team.
And I'm the Flow Bro.
Hello and welcome to MVP Days and the Get More Done with Microsoft Flow session. My name's Kent Weare.
And I'm Jon Levesque. So we're here today to talk to you about Microsoft Flow and how it can help you. But to give you an introduction to what Flow is, I wanted to share a story with you. So previously, I worked on a team here in Microsoft called the PKI Smart Card Security team. And on that team, I had a ton of terrible manual work, day after day after day. Okay, so to give you a picture of what my day looked like, I would receive several hundred emails that asked the same 4 questions. And every day, I had a Word document where I had formulated all these answers, and I would cut that from the Word document, paste it into the email to send the instructions off to the user. And so that job today with Microsoft Flow, I could actually probably automate and put that whole team out of work. But hey, Chris and Joe, I won't do that to you guys, okay? Promise. So what that says about Microsoft Flow is it's the new systems integrator, right? That was my job. I sat between mail and clients and tickets and actions that needed to be taken on their behalf. And I was the systems integrator. I took information and moved it from here to there. I took an action and helped that customer do X thing. But now with Flow, it is the system integrator. I could remove myself from that position and tell Flow, hey Flow, when an email comes in, check the text of that email for this question. If it contains this question, reply with this information. And so that just gives you a rough idea of how one way that we could use Flow and one way that was personal to me. Again, don't worry guys, I won't put you out of work.
You just allow them to get their work done faster.
That's right. They can sit there and browse the web and the Flow will do the work for them.
So that was a cool story about how you used Flow in a previous life. But how can you go ahead and use Flow yourself? And you have the ability to access Flow through a Flow Maker portal at flow.microsoft.com. And what you then have the ability to do is to construct essentially a workflow. And you can construct this workflow using drag and drop semantics. And really there's 2 core principles when it comes to a flow, and that's a trigger followed by an action. So in John's case, he used trigger, or in John's case, his trigger was an email event. And we can subscribe to many different events, whether they come from other systems like SharePoint or Dynamics. In addition, we can also subscribe to events such as a recurrence schedule, where if you need to run a process every morning at 6 a.m., you have the ability to do that. And another model that we support is the idea of buttons. And we're going to see that today in our particular scenario where we have a mobile button that exists on a phone, and when you go ahead and click that button, it'll actually instantiate a workflow. And once the workflow is instantiated, we can take advantage of actions, which come in the form of different connectors that exist. And how many connectors are we up to?
I think last I checked, 215.
215.
Yeah.
So you can use any of these 215 connectors and their subsequent actions in order to feed other systems. And what's really interesting is you can start to mash these different actions together and basically create messages based upon data from all of your previous steps in your workflow, which is extremely powerful as you build out these different workflows.
And so for today's example, you may have seen a popular TV show on cable where a company is in a very high-tech area and they create an app. One of the members creates an app and gets very rich from selling that app to Snapchat. Check this out.
I'm Emily Chang. This is Bloomberg Technology from San Francisco. In a moment, we'll be talking to Techonomy CEO David Kirkpatrick about the social media phenomenon sweeping the vegan meat industry. But first, we have seafood founder and CEO Jin Yang. Sorry, Mr. Jin, Mr. Yang?
It's Mr. Jin Yang.
Okay. Mr. Jin Yang, you just sold your company Seafood to Periscope, and we're hearing the deal closed at over $15 million. Can you confirm?
I am very rich.
My sources at Periscope tell me the tech is quite impressive, And your app uses the same machine learning to recognize if a food is a hot dog
and a not hot dog. So very important. It's a hot dog, not hot dog. It's technology.
Okay, so you saw the clip. I think you have an idea of what we're trying to do today.
You can't build that with Flow, can you? Like that, you need some high-tech tools in order to do that. I thought Flow was just about like managing your email.
No. I bet you that by the end of the day, we will have this solution built using only Flow.
And we might get it to eat a hot dog?
And we'll probably get to eat hot dog too.
Let's go.
All right, let's go. Come with us. We're going to get mobile, leave the studio, and we're going to see if we can actually make this happen. All right, we are heading to the cafe to attempt to find hot dogs. I know they got to have one around here somewhere.
Hopefully they have some with bacon as well.
Yes. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Test one. Let's go.
Can I get extra cheese?
I just don't like to overdo it.
Oh, I do like overdoing it.
Well, I don't.
Can I get, sure, thanks.
So what's going to happen is
That's still a 10.
Thank you. Box of all this.
Perfect.
It's not a hot dog.
That's not a hot dog. All right, we got to keep looking. Do you guys have any hot dogs?
Hot dog, sorry, no hot
No hot dogs. It's not a hot dog.
pork sausage.
All right, next test, Kent. We got to try these. Is this a hot dog?
Let's see. So bringing up my Flow mobile app, camera control, let's take a picture, use photo, done. Gonna get a push notification, not a hot dog.
Not a hot dog.
I was hoping it was a hot dog.
Not a
It's
hot dog. Damn.
Okay.
Looks kind of like a hot dog.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
We gotta find a hot dog.
All right. All right, Kent, it looks like the Himalayan restaurant is here today. Let's see if they serve any hot dogs. Is that a hot dog? Let's see. Not a hot dog. Oh, Kent, our mission to find a hot dog is falling short. All right, we are on our mission for the hot dog. 5 stops, no hot dog. Pablo, do you have hot dogs?
Of course we do.
You do? They have hot dogs.
Let's see how good Flow is.
Let's see. All right, Kent, we have found a hot dog. It is our moment of truth.
Moment of truth, all right.
Let's see how good Flow is.
Okay, let's take the picture. Use photo. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it
I
looks
should have
tasty.
ordered that. Hot dog.
Yes. Ding, ding,
We're
ding, ding,
good.
ding. Woo! Go Flow!
And
That's a pretty good hot dog, too. All right, Kent, we have found our hot dog.
was it good?
It was pretty good. We successfully saw that our model worked.
Yeah, machine learning models.
And now, let's go show these guys how it's built.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, we are back in the studio, and we are going to show you how this solution was actually built. But before we do that, I have to ask, Kent, how long did it take you to actually put this together? Because it seems like building a vision model to then feed a Flow would take a significant amount of time.
Well, it is a very sophisticated solution, and I'm pretty sure you owe me lunch for doing this. But the truth of it all is that it took me about an hour and a half to build this. I built it last night while I was watching some basketball, and really I was just doing it in between commercials. But it really speaks to the power of the technology that we're using here. So we mentioned earlier that Microsoft Flow has 215 connectors available to it. One of them is the Custom Vision API, which is part of Azure Cognitive Services. And really, we can build really compelling applications when we start to use these different connectors as building blocks and essentially mash up all of this different technology in a very easy to use package which is Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow really provides the orchestration across all of these different events and connections.
I am super excited about this. I can't wait to get into it, but I just want to recap, in case everyone wasn't clear. You built this service entirely using Flow in 1.5 hours while only stopping in the commercial breaks of the basketball game.
Yeah.
And you did it last night.
Yeah, and ASU won. So
And
the,
ASU won.
the team that I was pulling
right.
for. So you knew I was paying attention because I wanted to see them win. So they won. So it was all good.
Awesome. Well, I guess I bet these guys want to see how this is built. You want to jump in and show us how it's made?
So let's start off with Custom Vision API first. And what I did is I went ahead and I created a free account. So you can try all of this stuff for free, no charge. Otherwise, it's really inexpensive as well. But the sort of key point here is that if you were to try to build this yourself, it would be cost prohibitive. You would have to understand machine learning and a lot of the different cognitive techniques in order to recognize patterns, and it just isn't feasible. But using Azure and using cognitive services, we have this crazy functionality available to us at our fingertips for like the price of a cup of coffee. So what I did here is I went ahead and built a workspace, and I went and got a bunch of samples of hot dogs. And what I needed to do for each of the hot dogs that were added, I needed to go ahead and tag them. Now there are some restrictions on whenever you do create this workspace, you'd have to have at least 2 different tags available, and you need to have at least 5 different examples of each tag. So our key tag is really hot dog, but I also went through and added other tags for whether there was chili, ketchup, mustard, or relish as well. So in this particular example, we have a hot dog with ketchup. But I can scroll down and find, say, this one. Oh, this one is just hot dog, is just a hot dog as well. But if I find this particular hot dog, I've also tagged it with relish. So what I'm doing is, it does involve a little bit of work, but you know, it still was in that 1.5 hours that I talked about, where I just upload all of these images and manually go through and just attribute tags.
So hold on. So you said 1.5 hours. I thought you meant 1.5 hours to build the flow. You spent 1.5 hours total? Like training the model, building the flow, testing the flow, everything?
Yeah, so the game was over, so it was time to close up shop. Wow. I was good to go. So once I go ahead and basically tag all of these different images, I then have the ability to go ahead and train it. And once it's trained, there's nothing to train at this point since we haven't made changes, but once that's really the intelligence where we've got this machine learning model that's available to us. And then the other thing that happens is that an endpoint is provided for us that we can actually call from Flow. So this service itself exposes RESTful endpoints. So if you have a custom application, you could call it from there as well. But the value proposition with Flow is that we've got an out-of-the-box connector where you don't have to write any code in order to go ahead and call upon these models. And the other nice thing is that this is extensible. So if you find that as you're going through and testing out the model, you find that there's some edge cases, well, all you need to do is go ahead and add additional images and additional tags, which will then only make the model more accurate.
That's awesome.
So that's the custom vision side of it. Let's now head over to Flow. And so you can access Flow at flow.microsoft.com. And once we're in Flow, we've got a series of different tabs here. We've got My Flows, which is the screen I'm in right now. And these are all of the flows that I've authored. I also have the ability to jump into team flows, and these would be flows that I've shared with others or others have shared with me.
So that's like when I come to you and I'm like, hey, Kent, I have this really technical thing that I need done, and you build the flow, and then you share it with me. It's usually here.
That's never happened. But yes, that's one way how we could collaborate if that was ever the case. We also have the Approval Center, where we've got a first-party approvals experience inside of Microsoft Flow, where any requests that have come in that are seeking my approval, I have the ability to approve or reject. Then similarly from a sent request, if I've gone ahead and requested others to approve, we have the ability to manage that here as well. And then in addition, we've got templates, which act as accelerators for common patterns so that people can get up to speed very quickly with the technology using very popular flows such as the Office 365 to OneDrive for Business template. And then on top of templates, we also have connectors. And this is really the connector library that exists. And we've got over 200 of these first-party and partner connectors. In addition, we also support custom connectors. So let's jump right into the solution. And here's the solution itself called MVPDays, KW and JL Demo. And we're going to go ahead and click on the Edit Flow button.
Yeah, we named it cleverly like that because we didn't want to give away the hot dog, not hot dog.
Yeah, for sure. Some IP in here. But we're sharing it just with you. So here's the manual trigger of flow. And the power of this is when you actually drag this trigger onto your canvas, that actually shows up in your mobile app. So when you saw me on the mobile app and we had all those pretty circles and I clicked the circle and provided some input, that's how we actually configured that. So there's no custom code developed for that. That's out of the box. That's part of the Flow mobile capabilities, which is extremely powerful. That app takes care of the camera integration. We didn't have to muck with any of that. All we had to do was just basically indicate that our input was of type file, and we have the ability to use the file picker, and that can come right from the camera or a pre-existing photo. The next thing that we did was we integrated with an Azure service called Blob Storage. And all we're doing here is we're going to store the image that was taken from the camera into basically some storage living in the cloud that we can then use in other parts of the application and have a record of the image that was actually captured. Next up, I've got two variables, which I'm just going to go ahead and use just to manage the process. What we will find out is we get multiple predictions from the Custom Vision API, and we need to be able to sort of loop through those and actually figure out if there's an actual hot dog or not. And so this will help us manage that process.
And so Ken, could you tell me, like, what is a variable for if someone's new and has never used Flow before or hasn't worked with variables? What's a quick way to describe what that actually is?
Probably the best way to describe it is kind of like a box, right? So it's a box where you can store some data. And it's data that you can then use later on in your flow. So it's kind of like, hey, if I have a variable called name and I want to store someone's name in it, I could actually put the name into the box, and then later on in the flow, I can go pull from the box and retrieve the name.
Awesome. So it saves you time later on, so that way you don't have to enter that name each time over and over.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
So the next step or next action in our workflow is we're going to go ahead and create an item in SharePoint. And this was really, we have some aspirations of building a Power BI dashboard on top of this. Maybe that'll be during the next basketball game, but we could actually then, build a pretty visualization on top of all of these images and data, whether or not it's hot dogs or no hot dogs.
Well, and plus, you just always want to have an archive of your data. You want record keeping and auditing ability no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about later about some other real world use cases of this technology, this would be a great landing spot for some of that information.
Good call.
So here's where the magic happens. This is the predict tags from image. And this is part of the cognitive services. And what I can do to find this particular connector, I just go ahead and add an action and I can type in custom, and we'll see our list getting updated, and we can see that we've got the Custom Vision API. And there's sort of two modes to this. We can actually pass the image directly in to the API, or we can pass it from an image URL. Now in this case, I was able to pass the raw image right in, but either method will work. So what we're doing here is from the original trigger, we have the ability to use this dynamic content and actually find the content of our food picture. So that's what I've done here is I've essentially done a little bit of a mapping and taken the source input into the workflow, which happened several steps above, and then actually use it downstream.
Awesome. That
And
comes from our button press, right?
it comes right from our button press. So this is the image itself, and then I also need to provide the project ID from the Custom Vision API, and that's just really a setting once I've gone ahead and created my account.
Okay.
Now, as I mentioned before, there's multiple predictions that can be returned back from our Custom Vision API call, and I'll show you an example when we go through the run history of an example. But what happens is we're going to see all of the different predictions, and we're going to get a confidence value back. So there's going to be one called hot dog, and if it returns back and the confidence is higher than 85% or 0.85, we're going to say yes, we're confident that's a hot dog. But we also have the ability to get confidence on those other tags. So if we were really interested in a hot dog with mustard, we could also get the confidence factor of that as well. So it's multi-dimensional in terms of the tags and the confidence factors that are applicable to those different tags.
I think we might have messed up. We should have went after a hot dog with mustard. My hot dog could have used a little mustard.
Well, there is an MVP Open Days session in April, so we'll see.
try again.
We'll see if we
All
can
right.
invite it back. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically loop through each of the predictions, and then we're going to just do a very simple condition, like an if you're familiar with if then else. same sort of concept here where we're going to check on the tag and see if it's equal to hot dog. If it is, we're going to use our variable and we're going to actually set the confidence value for that. So we're actually tracking how accurate this model is because, there may be times when you need to tweak it a little bit. Then next up, we're going to check to see if it is greater than 85%. So I've used an expression here, and really what I need to do is I'm just using a cast. I just need to cast this string value into a float so that I can actually do a comparison.
And so what's a float?
So a float would be, similar to, it's a decimal. It's a number that includes a decimal versus an integer, which is just like a whole number.
Okay.
It's been a few days. It's a few years since I've been in school, but that's the best way to describe it. If you think of money or currency, you've got like, a partial unit, and a float allows you to manage that.
Perfect.
And the next step is we're going to then set our hot dog variable to true or false, and we're going to then send out a mobile notification indicating whether or not it was a hot dog or not hot dog. And we also have the ability to provide a link, so when I was clicking on the result from inside the mobile application, you saw that image that said hot dog or not hot dog, that's where that's getting surfaced from.
Awesome.
So this is another sort of key value prop or value add part of our platform, is these mobile notifications, where if I'm logged into the Flow mobile application, it automatically knows where to find me. And there's no additional charge for that. It's part of the existing platform offering, and it becomes very powerful because I can get real-time notifications about different events going on inside of Microsoft Flow.
Yeah, and I can imagine all the different kinds of notifications we could do as well, right? If someone wasn't happy with a mobile notification through the app, we could also do a text. We could also do an email.
Absolutely.
Right? We could even put a message into Teams if we wanted.
Absolutely, and that's really the value of having these different connectors or building blocks where you can basically assemble them to meet your needs and your requirements. So here's another really cool part of Flow, and that actually is the run history. So we actually have details about everything that happened inside of our Flow and inside an instance of a Flow run. So in this case, we can see we have a manual trigger and we have the outputs, which would be essentially our image. And we can also go ahead and take a look at SharePoint, and we can see the values that we passed into the call, and then we can see the outputs that were returned from the call, which is very cool. And this makes debugging a breeze because you have a very clear picture of what's being passed in and what's being passed out. Now, the most interesting part of this experience is around this predictive model. So here we can see all of the inputs that were provided, and then we can see the outputs. And in this case, we've got our predictions, and we can see that the hot dog tag that we talked about before, when we were looping through trying to see if it existed, we can see that it was 90% confident that that was actually a hot dog. And this was the last image that we took, which was you eating the actual hot dog. And then there's additional information where it wasn't all that confident that there was relish, and for good reason, there was no relish on it. The ketchup wasn't visible, nor the mustard, nor the chili. So it did a good job of identifying those tags or lack of tags as well.
That's true. I had no ketchup, no mustard, and no chili.
I should have had cheese maybe, but
they did put cheese.
Yeah. So that's the run history. That's the lowdown of the Flow.
Awesome. That is amazing that you were able to put all of that together in an hour and a half during commercials.
So obviously what we just showed you was fun in nature, but there's actually some real world applications of this technology. So I hear you have a few examples?
I do, and I think that they're possibly more practical and useful. Only possibly though, because I still feel like hot dog, not hot dog, very useful. So, but I mean, onto some real world use cases, right? So one of them is, imagine you have a plant nursery and that stock is continuously coming and going, right? People are buying things, your resellers are bringing stock back in. Well, imagine if instead of walking around with a clipboard, taking inventory of what you needed, returning back to the office, making purchase orders and the like, what if instead you could walk around with a tablet, take pictures of those plants, then all of a sudden and a lily is identified in the picture, and you can say, all right, I need to reorder an order of lilies. I need 20 more. And then you just kick off the order right from the tablet. The lilies come in. You don't have to go back to the office. You don't have to do data transfer. You don't have to do any of that. Just 2 seconds instead, and boom, solved.
Yeah, so no more typing in or having to figure out part numbers or like inventory IDs.
Exactly.
You just use a picture and it actually looks that up for you. Yeah, that's cool. I like that one.
You know, another one is big for me. I actually do a lot of nature conservancy stuff. So I have a drone and I partner with this nature conservancy company, and they use it for me to go get video of area to make sure that they know their boundaries and that things are being respected and so on and so forth. And so this was another idea I had. You know, I know this company that I work with, oftentimes when they go in and do conservancy, they do these initial surveys of the land. They go in and they see, you know, what's the local fauna and how is it surviving? Are there pest species that have invaded that need to be removed? And so imagine again, they're out there with a tablet, they take a picture of the plant, they see it's a pest species, automatically a work order is created for someone else to come and remove these. They don't have to go back to the office, again, transfer the data, type it all in, try and figure out, you know, carrying a GPS with them to map coordinates to the plants they took pictures of. The tablet and the device takes care of all of that for them.
Because that's a capability part of the Flow mobile app as well.
Exactly,
Is
yeah.
GPS, lat long.
Totally. When you do that button press, that's one of the pieces of data that's fed to you automatically, latitude and longitude. And so then you can put that right into a Power BI if you wanted to visualize where things were on a map. You could put it into a SharePoint list or a SQL or wherever you wanted to hold that info. And then, like we said, you know, more useful, send it off and create a work order automatically.
Cool.
And then the next one, obviously, this is a huge one, right? Site inspections of all kinds. I mean, we know that there are people right now using Power Apps and Flow, and they're working on boiler rooms, and they're checking fittings to make sure that these items are in good shape, right? So again, imagine we create a model to show what a good fitting on a pipe looks like.
Right.
And then that person or all of the workers could then walk around with their phone or their tablet, take pictures of the fittings, and they don't even have to necessarily have the knowledge of this is good, this is bad. You could get a new guy right there out being useful in the field with the tablet because the vision model does it for him, right? And then from there, he could then, if it said, oh, need a closer inspection, he could take a closer look, but then again from the same app, kick off a work order, get people there in half the time instead of him having to go back to the office and type all that out manually.
Yeah, I think it's one of those opportunities of using this cognitive capability in order for your business to scale, right?
Yes.
Typically, organizations today can't just increase headcount significantly, right? So how else do you scale your workforce? And you scale that by actually taking some of the low-hanging fruit per se, and you automate that.
Yeah.
You can automate that using cognitive in a very reliable and predictable way, and then escalate to your specialists as required in order when you need their input or their expertise.
Yeah, imagine. I mean, I think that if you were to give one person this technology, they could probably do the work of 3 or 4 people with clipboards.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, and so that scale is instantaneous.
Sure.
All right, guys, and so that is our session. We hope you enjoyed it. We sure did.
Absolutely.
I know that I loved the hot dog.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you got a good hot dog guy.
I did.
I went for the Indian food in case anyone would like to know.
I took one for the team. It's okay. So, last final question here is, where do you learn more? Big thing is, go to flow.microsoft.com, click on the Learn tab. There's a ton of information under there. First thing I would recommend is guided learning. You'll see a familiar face over there. Put together 14 videos just to teach you the building blocks on how Flow works. From there, get on the blog and check out the Flow of the Week. And there's a ton of useful stuff that comes out every single week there. We update it very frequently. And then finally, get in the community. Meet with other experts, talk to people, post your questions, post your ideas. There's videos, there's blogs, there's all sorts of content for you to get involved with to help educate you and to make sure that you are successful. Thanks guys so much for joining us. It's been a blast.
And one other thing to add is if you have Office 365, you have Flow entitlement. So you can go ahead and start this today.
Not just O365, but D365 as well. If you have Dynamics or Office 365, Flow is already in your package. Go to your waffle, search for it. If it's not there, just go directly to the URL, flow.microsoft.com. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a blast. We'll see you next time.